Um, Hopefully this records because my computer has been really weird, and I can only go in guest mode. Um, and it usually deletes all the photos I take. So, we'll see. Um, I just want to get this out while it's fresh, and hopefully this gets out to something like YouTube. Um, I do want to give people some pointers for doing the van build. I mean, not van life because I'm not there yet, but the van build. And it just keeps happening to me. So I'll just say, and this is what I'm talking about, is without having experience of van building before and just minimal, tool use around the house, simple things, nothing. I know how to use like I think it's like a table saw or a radial saw. That's so simple. Changing the angle. I haven't really used that saw much, but for this project, but of the van. But anyway, I don't have a lot of experience, and I think people in similar shoes will fall into the same kind of footsteps, unless you've got help, and that can be way different. I have pretty minimal help. I'm basically going about a lot of this stuff myself, only getting help when it's like totally essential. Will I grab somebody for two-handing I took my rack off of the van. That was definitely something I couldn't do, and we even had like a third spotter. It was shocking because that thing was like, I think, probably like 200 pounds. And I'm just not in any kind of shape. And it was like, kind of like, yikes. But, so the thing I want to say, without a lot of experience, you're going to fall into things like having to backtrack, make mistakes. It's going to take 2 to 3 times longer than you'd probably hope. I was hoping I'd get this thing knocked out in like a month, and I could just. It was like crazy idea to do that, to think that, but I mean, you've got to learn so much, and it's going to take a long time. One thing for myself is my memory doesn't actually retain that much, so I may have learned about something a few months ago, but it actually does me no good going forward because, it's just like I have a general idea of some things, but I'm unable to execute those kind of maneuvers and get those projects done. So, that's the main thing. And so for me, I'm trying to just more like box it up into small little tasks and just focus on that stuff. It is very hard for me. I love to just like get into all these things. And that is part of it. I mean, that is part of it. Like seeing the whole thing as like one unit that's, got cohesion and being mindful of, roof height or ceiling height here, and this measurement here. I honestly could plan this a lot better, and I might do that. I just got some grid paper out, because sometimes I forget, and then I have to go through my crummy notebook. It's just very kind of scattered in there. But I also don't think I've taken all the measurements. That will come in handy like fivefold. Just get those measurements down of everything you can. Like if the measurement starts to change, like, okay, you're going to want to change that too and have that written down where you can just keep referring to it. Because you'll constantly be saying like, oh yeah, if my width is 52 inches or that bed frame comes out 32 inches with width, how much room is that going to give me for like this cabinet door? And I've jumped a little ahead. I'm actually doing that in some thinking. I don't really need it. So, taking notes on what your thoughts are and what your organization is is going to help, because you might have a great idea and that gets lost somewhere down the line where somebody says, like, oh, you should change this. And then you're like, oh yeah, you know what? I will change that. And you never thought, oh, I had this really cool idea for this spot that was going to be more than just that shelf space, with an overhead cabinet. It may have been, I don't know, like a pull-out toilet seat. I don't know, just there's so many options. But yeah, getting your great ideas down and in writing, and also recording that evolution of what your space is looking like, those measurements. Yeah, because I'm only adding a couple things right now where I know I've committed to at least one piece. I might have thought about actually changing my other piece, which could extend the length of my bed. I might just keep it the same. But you want to know that measurement, because that's going to start affecting things. It's going to affect. For myself, I have the bed, a box that's about a third of the bed. A little less than a third, I guess, of the bed. And that's in the far back where you've got the garage storage stuff. You can access it from outside. That goes in like straight in against the wall, but I mean, you're accessing that whole cabinet straight in, and then the rest of the bed is thinner going down, but it will be able to pull out to that same width. So you start to be able to, add on to these measurements and see what else is going to work. So, yeah, I don't think that's advice you really need, and I don't know if that makes sense, but cabinets can come later. A lot of things can come later. It depends on what steps you want to do them at, but I think it's very important to at least just find the ones that you want to do in which order, and also be thinking of like 2 or 3 things, like, okay, like I can't just build this without thinking about where my furring strips that are attaching my floor, and I still need to do this. I do have some Sharpies. I always imagined doing it with a black Sharpie, but the wall's not going to be seen. I need to mark exactly on the sides of the wall where my furring strips are. Yeah, and I'm not even sure if I'm going to be doing the ceiling before the walls. That's kind of a couple steps later, before I researched on that. I mean, I've seen probably so many videos that do it. And honestly, they probably switch it up. I don't know if there's any one way that's better than the other for that, but that's an example. Like, you don't want to just... Sometimes you don't realize that your steps aren't... Your task isn't all the way complete. Like, you might need to mark it, make it easy for it to be seen, if you're doing wiring, you're going to want to like label those wires with like tape. You could do whatever you want if you're putting the wall up and I'm leaving these wires here for something adding on later, but they're kind of tucked up in there. Well, you could put an arrow from where the spot you could see when you start to access that compartment, and put the little little bit of Sharpie that just has a bit of an arrow, like wires here for this, just in case. You don't want to just start putting holes and starting threads of ideas even in the van that you can't access later. So that's nothing I've done yet, but it's something I will be doing pretty soon. It's really weird. I really thought I was just going to stick with the bed frame until it's finished. It's taking a long time, and I had to do some a lot of planning, a lot more planning for the slat bed. One of the biggest things I'm doing in this van, I think, is the bed. I'm trying to get this to a T to match a Kamet bed that they sell for like, I think it's like $380, but it's a UK company. So anyway, yeah, I'm trying to get that bed squared away well, and all that planning took a lot more time, especially for the slats. And but now I'm okay. This is where I'm going with that idea. Now I got insulation in, and it came early. I think it came in here like half the time. I don't know. I wasn't tracking it. I think my phone's. This is weird. This charger worked for one time. Now it doesn't want to charge my phone. I don't know if it really ever did charge my phone. So I had a calendar there of when the Havelock wool was going to come. But yeah, I think it got here like 4 weeks. So they said 6, which is cool. So I was actually stalled because the insulation was like a big deal. And now I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm not even ready for it. Which is all fine. I mean, it's all like relative and all in good time. So I just need to finish my floor. I was just starting to change part of my floor, which, okay. I had part of my floor open because there was a sine wave there. And also a battery. Not that I have these working yet. The sine wave turns on, and I don't know. It's a confusing little piece, and both are a bit old. But the sine wave is like golden. I mean, as far as I know, it's like, oh, I'll want to use that sine wave. It might be a little heavy, but my point is, I left everything there. I cut around that to do my plywood and everything. I'm like, you know what? I'm just gonna leave that right there. No one's gonna see that, and that's that. Which is, overall, it doesn't help with the waterproofness. I'm thinking of it, like that wasn't a super great idea. That's probably the only thing I can think of is that it's gonna have less insulation there. Wasn't gonna do insulation, but the Havelock wool, it comes in only like this large amount, so I'm probably gonna do the floor, and that's good. I mean, it's no problem to insulate the floor. And I don't really understand it. Some people have said like, oh, only insulate the floor if you're gonna be in a really cold environment. But I'm gonna be everywhere. I'm gonna probably chase good weather, but also go and seek some cold weather too. I'm not so much into hot weather. I'll probably just hang out in some hot weather if it's just circumstantial, like, hey, I'm in the desert, let's just, I don't know, park out here and hang out with some van lifers, RVers. I don't know. But I'm totally getting off point here, off track. What was my point? Yeah, so why am I going into the floor? I don't know. But this is a process I've been going through. And I guess I'm just telling you about how I'm switching up. Yeah, it's about being able to adapt, switch things up. You might think one thing was going to take you this amount of time when it takes you this much amount of time. Hey! So now I'm moving the sine wave and the battery over so that I have more height and that those can be stored underneath my bed. So then that whole area has its regular height, not impeded by the sine wave and the battery. So that's not finished yet, and the wires don't exactly reach. I think I just have to dismount it from the wall. It's weird. Not that this is making much sense. I think it's the ground or something. It's attached to the wall. I need to move that over so everything can reach. I think it can. Just needs to come off the wall. and I'll be doing that really soon. Yeah, I might have my friend who actually recommended that I do this. He caught it pretty quickly. I mean, he only looked at around my van for 45 minutes, an hour, and that's what he came up with. That just like, you know what, you should just move this. And I was like, it took me like a few minutes, but I'm like, no, I like that idea, because it did seem weird me leaving that the way it was, and I knew that I could change the floor. I mean, the floor is going to be in more pieces, but that's just the plywood and furring strips, and it's all stable with or without being one piece. And actually, it might be better because it'll flex more. But I have marine sealant down for the furring strips to attach to the bottom, which is really interesting stuff. I really like it. And it's like you can cut it out if you needed to, and it's very strong and pliable. It's some really great stuff. I think it was a little pricey. I forget. It may have been like $15 a tube. I don't know, $20 a tube. I'm not so sure, but it's worth it. I didn't even go through a whole tube and did my floor, and I probably have like this much left in the it's like a 10-ounce caulking tube. What else? So yeah, I just need to get more furring strips in, and I like to put this waterproofer on them just in case like some water gets under there. It can really repel it. And yeah, I got to get the battery thing figured out, and I feel like almost temporarily disabling that alternator battery sine wave system, just because like they're huge, they weigh a lot, like, and they're not doing anything for me. It's just like, it feels like such a burden to have something like, I know they could potentially work, and I'm probably going to keep all those connections that are coming from the battery, and you know, it's all ready. It just isn't in working order. So I don't know. I'll still stick to the plan where I'm just moving it under where the bed's going to be. It's right where the bed frame ends, and it frees up a ton of room. It must free up. I had it kind of written down. It doesn't really matter. I don't really have an idea for what I'm going to do there. I only know that the toilet's going to go there, and I'll get there when I get there. I was trying to think of some ideas, but I really just, again, like, I just need to focus on the task at hand. And yeah, it's, you know, it's easy. I've done the floor before, so it's just patching the floor back together after I get those furring strips ready and waterproofed. And of course, the battery and the sine wave aren't going to mount yet. They're kind of going to be loose until I'll probably drill them into the laminate, probably. Yeah, but of course they're gonna have to hit the furring strips. That's a really important thing, is to mark those furring strips, because what's gonna happen is you're not gonna see them once you screw everything down. So if you mark the sides, that's great. And I actually have some running through the middle. I'm gonna try to mark those too, which I can do. You know, it's just the plywood. You could put a mark on the edge. Maybe not the very edge, because you might actually see that if you're in the back, and where the laminate's going to connect right there when you open the doors. Might not want to do markings on that back edge. I've been thinking of that. You know, you want to keep that pretty clean. Dang, it's hot in here. It's like I want to open windows, but it's smoky out. I've been outside like all day. It's weird. It's like you get a break from the hot weather, but then you go out and then your throat kind of hurts. I actually think I feel it in my throat. Oh well, it's just part of being in California, really. So yeah, that's just my advice is that's just a good example. Stay adaptable to move things around, change your plans, spend more time, connect ideas, write things down, plan it well. One thing for me, and I've mentioned it in other videos I've done, which I don't know if I can access those. My computer is being so awful, can't access anything. I've had these glasses on all day. It's handy. You never need to, you're going to use some kind of tool you're not really ready for. Got your protection. Yeah, so planning things out, like just remaining adaptable. And for instance, okay, so now part of my thing again is just that I'm going to probably take a break from the bed. I'm like, I don't know. See, everything is, all the work you put in adds to the time all the same, right? If I start working at the right step of like what needs to go in order for this other later step to happen, say if I was doing the floor or insulation, and not doing the bed, that's all just time spent getting the process done. If I do one, I'm gonna have to do the other. If I do one first, I'll have to do the other anyway. So I might just not try to just have my hands in too much. Again, that's one of my issues, is I get a little too floaty and thinking about so many things. Yeah, and it's very interesting where I've probably have it outlined a few times where I thought the process was going to go, like step by step by step. Really isn't that way. So I'm going to stick with doing the bed frame because I was nailing it, all the thoughts and trying to understand how to do each piece. And it's a task. It's really, it's probably the most complicated thing in that van. Like, hands down. Not so much in, like, if I'd have just bought it, right? And the complexity of it, using it, no, it's just a slat bed with a few doors, like, here and there, for storage. But because I'm trying to replicate it and think about how everything works and why they did this here and why it looks this way there, it's becoming the biggest endeavor with the van. I think the electricity is actually going to be pretty big, and I've always spent a lot of time like here and there, and that's going to be a very quick next step, because honestly, when I get this floor done, which could only take a day, less than a day, just cut some furring strips, paint them, they dry like it by night, they're dry. I think it says to give them like 24 hours. And you can also do like 2 coats, do like another coat right after the first few minutes after. So anyway, that's really quick. The electricity actually comes before the insulation. So anyway, that's the thing. It's like, it's going to be really hard for me to be like not going getting ready for insulation, because I just feel like, I'd actually want to stay in it more. I don't know. I don't know if it really matters, because people just sleep with the windows open out here. And that usually does it for most people. It's cool enough by like 10, 11. And anyway, I just got to chill on the insulation and electrical. I think I'm just going to go strong towards this bed frame. And I could show you the plans. That might be kind of fun. I found this folder. It's like a folder I wasn't really using. And yeah, I take note. I do notes when when I guess when I plan things, because yeah, I don't know if I'm gonna read all that. Probably gonna read all this. Like, say for instance, I'm doing this piece. This is just like one piece. Probably read all these notes because they're relative to, yeah, to that, and sometimes they're relative to this whole thing being functional. And it's so precise though. It's really it's like if you mess up your math, man, like I could literally be like buying an extra sheet of plywood. Well, it's not that much, but I think for what you get, like a really functional bed, all this is worth it. It's like it's really fun to do so far. I've had to do a lot of sanding on. I have this box that. Oh yeah, you can see it in here. The part with all the slats, or not slats, but I don't know, just lines really. This isn't bad, right? Because you just cut these out square with like a handsaw, but this stuff, sanding that, has been really, really challenging. And if I was going to do it again, I would, and I could still do it. I'm just a little nervous because I've been using very fine sandpaper and taking a lot of time with it. But I could use a router on that. And I've actually messed up on one with the skill saw. I cut it all with the skill saw and did it where it's like this wide instead of this wide. It's noticeably bigger, but there's so many slats really, and I don't have like these. I'm probably missing like one or two because I have a centerpiece that I put in there for fun. Of course, it's not underneath; it's on top. It's like this little sacred geometry piece. Still not sure how I'm going to do it exactly, but I have it all routed out, and it's almost finished. The little edges, it's only like this thin or this deep in, because that's the size of the geometric piece I have, and that's about like 4 inches. Anyway, I almost went with like a 5-inch one, but these were just really cheap, and I don't know. I think there's a lot of sacred geometry artists out there, or they just use like a laser or 3D printer, but yeah, he had some really competitive prices and awesome designs from California. I have a lot of stuff from California in the van, like the jackery, the solar panels, that thing. I don't know, the wood. I guess I'm getting all my wood. Getting a lot of stuff from Amazon, and also sending back a lot of stuff from Amazon. I've sent back 3 things, and I think I'm going to send back like 4 things next time in like a few days. Well, one thing I think is good advice too is I don't think people need an outside plug, a 110 outlet to give you power. And I don't actually know how to wire that up, but the reason is because I realized I don't want an extra hole to let people know like this person's for sure living in this van. I'm really going for the stealth idea. And so much so that I'm even thinking about getting a folding bike and just keeping my good bike at home. That's kind of what I had planned on doing before. I've already thought about it. Just box it up, make it small to store here. But yeah, I don't want a bike showing. I mean, there's going to be solar panels and a fan, but people can use their imagination, hopefully, and be like, oh, it's a work fan. Look at how orky it looks. Might even put like some kind of business label on the side, like both sides, just because why not? It's like people respect you and are less likely to steal from you and all sorts of things when you're a business. Somehow people just around here, I know they respect businesses, but they don't respect people. And I don't know if that's like in a real general sense or if that's just like in the vehicle sense, but I've experienced it when I had an RV, so it's not something I want to repeat. It's just giving people a great visual and idea of me living in there. That's one of the big reasons why van life is so appealing, super appealing. I love that. I love the idea of people not knowing what I'm doing. So, yeah, what else? I thought sharing some of this bed stuff is interesting. This one's a lot more basic. Oh, this is actually, it's only basic because that's my electrical layout. It's not even done. But I've done it a few times in my journal. But with this grid paper, it's way more helpful. Anyway, you don't have to see that for this video, but this does have a back. I wrote on this. So this has, what is it? The rest of this is all the bed stuff, the bed frame, but it has the face, which is this part. This part right here that pulls out. And it actually, when it's closed, you don't actually see it in these photos. Yeah, and I only printed 2 because those are kind of like the complex photos. And you can see a lot more what's going on inside and how it's put together. But that face, it actually protrudes a little bit because it comes against the box. That it's like the face frame. So it's kind of interesting. It's like a double face. There's actually like 2 sides that hit together. And it's just for the structure, really. And it's like, why not just keep it thick in this spot here? And honestly, it's because there aren't that many supports on this bed. It all like kind of holds itself together, and there are different plastic, like 90-degree not joints, but braces that hold it there. But honestly, because these legs pull out and they need space here, you can't have this to be like a really solid piece. It's just like one board. And there is a brace on the other side that allows for this gap, but I think for storage sake, they do it very small. So there's just maybe like a 1 foot, or not even that, like 10-inch kind of slot that lets the chair come, the leg come into it, and it's still retaining some structure there with the frame. I don't know if that makes sense, and I know it's hard to see, but in there it needs this 90-degree leg to fit back in. On this side, it's parallel with this. It slides right in behind there. So anyway, that's all connected to the face. I don't think anyone was ready for me talking about this part of my van build, but yeah, I don't know if some of these things are just helpful. Like, if I give you some just general ideas, like, there are more important cuts on here than others. For instance, some of these bracing boards, there's a bracing board right here, and I can actually see that it doesn't even go all the way across. It's just like somewhere in the middle. So instead of doing a measurement for it, I'm like, I'll figure that out later. It's somewhere in the middle. And just like these legs, do you think that leg distance length matters? No, it doesn't. It only matters when I start building that brace. So, and you can figure, there's a lot of things that you figure out as you go. So, yeah, some cuts are way less important than others. But of course, like, is this length important? And finding out if, where it's going to hit, and if it's going to go before this gap, the width of this plywood at the end. Yes, that's very important. So I have that all marked out. I don't know off the top of my head, but I think it's 51 and 3/8 or something close to that. What's probably on right here? Oh, it's 53 and 3/8. Yeah. So yeah, a lot of little fine details that have gone into planning this out. One really helpful thing, if somebody was ever going to do something like this, you start looking at it long enough. I've looked at it for hours. It's good to start asking yourself, where would I start on this project? Because you start doing all this like speculation of like how long these boards are. Some of it's speculation, sometimes you have a pretty good idea because this measurement, and then you just say, oh, that looks like a couple inches off. But when you put it together, it's not all straightforward. Like, hey, I'll just boom, like just throw all the pieces I made on there. To think about how the structure is going to get built, and even maybe how you'll figure out angles you need that aren't yet determined, that can be helpful, and they're not determined till later. So you couldn't really see it on here, I don't think, but I said start here. I'm pretty sure I want to start there, and I can't even tell you the reasons why off the top of my head, but I think because I have this box will be built, I have all those pieces done, I just need to put them together. I have that foundation. I thought building off of it would be best. Yeah, I mean, I probably haven't planned that out super well, like what board should come next, but it's like a lot of things. I think you're not going to be wrong to like make this piece and then this piece. I could make them all, a lot of them ahead of time, but some do need the others to get an accurate measurement. So yeah, it just takes a little bit of thought, and you just see the function. You're like, okay, if that's going to hit there, then why not just build the rest of the face after I have these boards down, right? That only makes sense. And I think that can take out a lot of guesswork of like, oh, I'm looking so far ahead trying to think of what that's going to be. Well, it's almost like just kind of cheating a bit. Like, well, why don't I just throw a tape measure out, basically, or give myself that guide, put something there that I know is going to be there. It's nothing tricky. And then I know how to build off of that and what the rest of the measurements are going to be. Because if those measurements are off, that you keep planning for it, they're way down the line, it's going to be off. If you keep doing measurements that don't actually fit, and just because that distance is so great, I mean, yeah, it doesn't take it. It doesn't help you take into account like any errors that you may or not make. So I think that by giving ourselves like these guides and just doing some general framing with it, getting the box created on the whole, that can really help and take a lot of guessing out. It's I think really similar concept to when you do an angle with just a something really small. It's like, okay, I think this angle is like this, and I'm using something that's like 6 inches, and maybe you're trying to do like the same line, but it's a lot more accurate when you do it with something large. So I take a big old like square that's, I don't know, like four, it could be like 3 or 4 feet by 1 or 2 feet. I throw that up, and then I mark a line for an angle that is gonna be way more consistent. So I think that's really similar. So because we use like the tools that give us a more accurate measurement and set us up down the line, like the rest of this square, we just get more accurate measurements, instead of doing this and this and this and this like 8 times and having just maybe some slight discrepancies in my angle. Maybe it's messed up a good amount. And traveling to get there, I can see the big picture, and I've already gone there. So that's what I'm talking about. Instead of just thinking I know how to get there, I'm going, and step by step by step, I'm just going to say I'm already there and get the theorizing out, right? I really think it's something like a handicap, or like a cheat sheet, not cheat sheet, a trick, a hack. So, yeah, that's that. The other board I had on here, I've already cut, and I do know I messed it up a little bit. It's like 1/8 of an inch off. But in the grand scheme of things, I've actually thought, in the way I'm going to have shelves against that side, probably, it might not even matter. So I'm probably just going to keep using that plywood. And to maximize the space, I'm not just going to have that an open face on the side. The square side I'm talking about, I just call it the side, is this spot. So I'm not just going to have like a gap there with nothing. I don't think many vans have places like that. So that corner's safe. It bugged me a bit, but I started to think about it like, yeah, and even the siding of the van, it's it can even be curved a bit, I think. I haven't really done any of the walls and the I forget what it's called, shiplap. I think I'm going to be using shiplap for that. Not to be confused with tongue and groove. My dad actually explained what the difference was, and he just made it, not that I remember exactly, but it sounds like tongue and groove actually creates a better water barrier because it's more like a V, and that shiplap might be something that just like one overlapping spot, not like double V-shaped kind of overlapping. Anyway, I could just talk about this for days and days till I just get tired, but yeah, that's the bed, and it'd be really interesting. It's really interesting. I definitely have way more information than that. Oops. That's just like a loose page I ripped. This journal is almost done. The dogs almost ate, well, they ate it really good. But luckily, no pages got torn out. Yeah, not one page. But yeah, the box has been a little... It's been crazy. This is just like trying to plan like where I'm gonna cut it out on the plywood, what would maximize the plywood, which isn't really, it's really not easy. I wish there was an app. there should be some kind of application website that shows you that, because I definitely struggled. Sometimes you're like, oh yeah, I'll just mark that. And maybe because I wasn't using grid paper, it was hard. I don't know. Like, I'll just mark that all out, and I'll be able to determine like how to maximize the plywoods, with all my cuts. No, it's I don't know. I think what I've heard people do for stuff like planning in a room, maybe you could do that with this, where they cut it out to scale and then they move it around. I never thought of that till now. Then they move it around to see what a good fit would be, and just play with options like that, so they can like have a real visual and accurate like model for that, even though it's like the weakest kind of just paper model, but it definitely helps rather than just not having things move. It's like almost creating your own, I don't know, like application where you can click and draw and model things, like a CAD program. I think you can do that in CAD. It's been a long time since I did CAD. Yeah, you could do that in CAD. Ooh. Yeah, and I actually redid some stuff. Like, I really can't remember why it changed. Oh wait. Yeah, I think just a simple measurement, one measurement changed, and then it changed a bunch of things. I'm not sure. Yeah, my slats. I had the first thing I did for the slat beds was I was measuring how big each slat was going to be, and that's got to be further back. Anyway, I'm pretty sure it's different now. I divided. I think the length must have changed. Yeah. And I honestly can't say off the top of my head why I changed the length, but instead of 52 and 5/8, I had to divide the whole thing by 53 and 3/8. Yeah, see, I honestly do not know. That's gonna be something I look at right now. But yeah, this all got me thinking, like, I'm gonna finish this bed because I've drilled the thought and I'm not gonna get sidetracked. So yeah, I mean, let things evolve, let things change. That's kind of going back on what I was saying though. But also, I think it could be helpful. Yeah, try to stick with what you're working on. Get that finished. Do each thing as thoroughly as possible. Like, I've dipped into a couple things and just not done them to the full extent, and I think it just adds to stuff. And luckily, no, I still have stuff to do on my fan. It's pretty much done, but I want to put Dicor tape around it because I bought it, and a guy recommended I do that as well. And actually, the lap sealant needs to solidify anyway, so yeah, that's a small task. It'd probably take like 10-15 minutes. But anyway, just keep being adaptable but finish those projects that you start. I think that'd be really helpful. But also, while trying to think of other things that need to be incorporated with that decision. It's like if you get sidetracked, you're just like tunnel vision and like, I'm just going to do the fan. You may have not turned the fan the right way. I did some of that stuff. Like, one thing I wanted to say too is like, don't half-ass the framing on the fan. I did that, and because the two boards I used to frame it weren't glued together. That was a big part. You should glue them together. That would be the best, I think. 'Cause there's no extra hardware in there. Doesn't add to like the depth of this area, because you want it to be pretty flush, like whatever you're doing. I think it's hard to measurement to see if measure it so that it's going to fit what your ceiling is going to be doing. But I learned a few lessons with the fan. Yeah, make sure that framing is like all like symmetric. Don't just think, oh, no one's going to see it and I'm going to just make a rough cutout. That I would not do. Make it perfect. If you're doing a couple, whatever, if it's the outside, the inside, it's all gonna facilitate, I think, a good connection with the plate that goes in underneath, and where you're not having like the wood fall out if you're doing wood, or the frame fall out while you're trying to hold it. And you got to hold it for a while. You can't really, once you get some screws in, I mean, sure, you could probably let it go after like one or two screws, but I would just say like get everything, and you should do it square on the outside. My dad told me that, and I had just done a circle. I'm not sure why. It's honestly, the fan hitting the ceiling was hard for me to imagine, and even how the fan worked. It was like, what? There's two sides. These two pieces come off. It took me a few days to realize like how even the mechanism worked. I just had to like kind of research it more, but do the fan framing right, and I would say also drill pilot holes in the metal with like a metal drill bit, and then get wood screws to go into your wood, and make sure they're like circular and kind of pancake-ish, because that's going to give you the best contact for that lap sealant, and just the most contact, so you're not going to get water coming in like this. It's going to be hard for it to get in if you've got a screw head already flush with the, if it's parallel with your surface up there. So wood, stainless steel screws with heads like this, make sure they fit into your diameter of hole. And what else? Make sure the fan works. I did it a little late, but I thought of it in time before I did. No, I didn't really do it in time. If I would have done it on time, just to save any hassles, if the fan does not work, I would have done it right before I mounted up there or something, not that I still have it covered under like Amazon, but yeah, it's like you don't want to mount something up there that doesn't work. So I did that with not the right cord, but I actually did it into an Anderson cable into my Jackery cigarette port, and I didn't think I could, but I was like, you know what, this looks black and red, I'm just going to do it. White is negative, black is positive. Sometimes they're not black and red, they're white and black. So the white, I'm pretty sure, don't even quote me on that, look it up. But you got to figure out which is, I'm pretty sure my white was negative and my black is positive, and that's always a thing if you have those wires. But don't take my word for it, because you don't want to screw things up. And you might be able to screw things up by switching the wires, so watch out. So that's something I definitely learned. And but yeah, you're not going to get it, just for me and my own thing, like, you're not going to get it right every time. You're not going to get it right the first time. I wanted to mount it like, I had everything ready. I thought I had the right screws. But I was trying to use like self-tapping metal screws to go in, and no pilot holes, and it was like, it was freaking ridiculous. I had to keep changing everything. Like, And I told my dad it was going to be like 6 or 7 minutes, and it ended up probably taking all the time he was down there going over things with me. It was like probably like 45 minutes. So we came back at it later when I got the right screws, did the right framing, and I was glad about this because that framing might actually be more prominent than the tongue and groove that's going to go up there. I have the nicer board, which is a redwood piece, underneath that, and actually redwood's really nice. It cuts really easily. It sands really easily. It's just, redwood is so nice. I've been messing with plywood, and it's kind of difficult, But like a solid redwood, it's like, oh my gosh, it's like a piece of heaven. Anyway, that's good to think about. With my exact fan, I'll do a whole video probably about just that fan, but it's good to think about where that wire is going to come out. It can get a little funky, but I think for the most part, you just need it to come in, and you need it to attach to the ceiling. Honestly, I don't think there's anything else I could do. I mean, I might end up screwing into it to pull that wire out a new way, but I honestly don't know what my ceiling is going to be looking like, and I just don't know. But right now, I'm trying to think of it, I don't even know where the wire is. It doesn't come outside of the framing. I think it comes inside of the framing. Yeah. It's just weird. There's no directions, and I don't know. I never really paid attention where people put their wires in the videos, but worst case scenario, you can probably like loop them up or drill something back up in there. That could also be hard, but I think that makes me want to go pop down there and look. But anyway, I've talked long enough. There's some lessons I've learned. I would do the fan like that. If you're doing the fan I did, vent air. I always forget what it's called. It's like vent air. They're circular, like 6-inch fans, and you can like pop them up to bring air in and bring them down to kind of close things up. And I don't think it would really work if you don't have it open. So you need it open, and it lets that fan pull air out. So anyway, vent air fan. And actually, I don't know how long it'll be like that, but they're only like $60 something. It's like $40 cheaper, maybe more, $50 cheaper than most of the prices out there. Yeah, that sucked to see, but I was trying to just look at the fan real quick and see a couple things like, oh my gosh, is it really $60? Like $4? Like, wow. So it's like $45 cheaper. But anyway, that's that. Hope that kind of planning and advice was helpful for someone out there, and that this video actually worked. I'll try to post it. Bye. Happy vanning.